What can I torture our viewers with today? Hello, it's Jenna, and you're watching another WWM Productions video, and today I present you with a random ramble about historical period dramas, because story time, I've been watching Downton Abbey since this year began, and I can't watch it on anything other than DVD that I get from the public library in our town. And if you couldn't tell, there's a reason why I'm only on season 4. So, today's video, I'm talking about historical period dramas and just historical-based media because I think it's really cool and worthy of a little bit of attention because, I don't know, people think history is dry, but history is actually really, really cool. Like, history is not just the textbooks you were forced to read for hours on end in your A-push class. History is so much more than that, and I think historical period dramas that take place in a historical setting or tackle a historical person or event or setting are really cool and have the chance for really dynamic storytelling. However, I think it's also important to note that a lot of the history we have today, especially as someone who lives in a Western country like the United States, and has also really the bulk of the history that I've learned through school and just not on my own time, has been generally Eurocentric or US history that tends to follow a very specific narrative that has been tried and true for a really long time and tends to exclude certain people. I think representation is really important on screen, and it's something that I really want to see across all different types of media that people consume, and I think also this does also reflect historical media and what we consume and what we see on screen. So of course it's always important to remember that just because you're talking about history, history is a multifaceted aspect of time, and it's not just one person or one group of people. There's so many sides to each story, and I think through film we can really push through that and break boundaries, but of course there's a lot of unlearning that you have to do first, and so I think it's really important to include everybody's history and include everyone from every moment of time and not just exclude people. We need diverse representation across all aspects of film, and we need stories told because through film and through shows and through media, people can learn and learn to emphasize and just learn more about different types of history. Like, I know that the show Watchmen, I'm still watching it, but it was praised for its look at the Tulsa Race Massacre back in like the 1920s because that had never really gotten any attention for being such a catastrophic event for Black people. And it got attention through that show, and that was something that was really good for history to have that shown to other people. So I think historical shows and movies can be really important to demonstrating all different types of people if we move forward enough to actually do that, which I think we should. But moving away from the serious side of this conversation, because I don't want this video to be a huge bummer, and that's more of a video I would want to make with a proper script and really focus time and energy to that. I also just think historical shows can be really fun. I use that word way too much on this channel, but it's true. Like, people think, oh, it's a stuffy, aristocratic show about rich people and problems, oh, drink tea. And, like, I realize I opened this video where I talk about Downton Abbey because, like, yeah, Downton Abbey, but I think historical shows can be really, really interesting, and you get the vibes and the atmosphere of wherever and whenever you are, and you can do such crazy, inventive things with it. I know with this summer, with Hamilton being released onto Disney Plus, it was given almost a whole second renaissance, haha, renaissance in a history video, but it was given a whole second renaissance because it was released to more people that could actually, like, afford to see it, but it was given this second chance to really, like, reach even more people, and its popularity grew again, and a Broadway show about a founding father that no one really knew about, but it took on, like, a rap and hip-hop perspective, became a cultural phenomenon, and I think so many stories throughout history have the potential to be looked at in a different way like that. And it's true, when you look at history, you're like, wow, I can see things from the present here, and there's just such a drive for dynamic storytelling that I think it's so interesting that sometimes the things you can find when, even if you are just reading a history textbook, like I've read things and I've laughed and I've gotten weird looks from people because I'm reading a history textbook, but I'm like, wow, that's like, that's genuinely cool. Like, this is a story someone could tell. Like, it's interesting. And I know it's not just me. Like, you can find so many stories within stories. Like, I know a couple years ago, I think it was 2016, the movie Hidden Figures came out. And this book had been out for a while, and I hadn't heard that much about it, but then when the movie came out, suddenly everyone was talking about Hidden Figures and the story behind that movie. That was the book. And everybody had talked about the space race, and you would think that we would know everything we need to know about the space race now, but then Hidden Figures come out, and now we have a whole new conversation of new characters that were real people during this world-altering event. So it's just so fascinating to me, first of all, that we can have history that we don't do anything with, but second of all, the things that people can find and then bring to screen, and I'm like, how could I never know about this before? So I just think it's fascinating all around. And of course, if I'm going to start this conversation, I might as well carry it through, because I have some ideas for people to use if they want to make a historical show or movie, because I mean, history is cool, and if I'm gonna have to take history classes, I'm gonna have some thoughts. French Revolution is really cool, but for whatever reason, after Les Mis, we kind of just stopped, and we were like, no, we've hit our peak. We can't do anything more than this. But I disagree, because the French Revolution, in the era of absolutist kings in France, was pretty wild and really cool, and it's kind of really underused. I don't know, I feel like we could really do something with this and really tap into this potential. Like, I mean, come on, like, guillotines, so much like riots and protests. I feel like we could really make something that's still relevant to today using this really fascinating time in history. Is that just me? Is that weird? I don't know. And because it's me and there's books out there that I want to talk about, and I have a YouTube channel, I'm gonna do it. And I know I brought up books before, but like that was just a little appetizer. And there's a book series called The Conqueror's Saga, or better known as like the Anti-Darken series by Kirsten White, and it is a kind of like retelling of like the story of Vlad the Impaler, kind of. I don't know that much about Vlad the Impaler, but like that's what I've heard it is. But it's a really interesting story about a girl and her brother being sent into the Ottoman Empire from, doesn't exist anymore, European country. I think it was called Wallachia. And they were sent there as kind of like payment to the empire for protection, so their country didn't get wiped out. And it follows them throughout the course of their lives, and it's so fascinating, and honestly, like, it's such interesting storytelling, and it really does a great job of balancing history and dynamic storytelling that I think would just be a fabulous show or movie or series of movies, because it's 3 books. But also, like, in the second book, they talk about the fall of Constantinople, and my gosh, some of my favorite words ever. So good, just chef's kiss. So, again, history is really cool, and you have epic battles, and, like, betrayal, and romance, and you have all of this throughout history. But then why don't we use it all the time? Or why do we have this aversion to it? I don't know. And like, there's the voyages of Zhang He before China went on its isolationist era for centuries, and then it opened back up again into a whole new changed world. Isn't that really interesting? And the Russian Revolution as well. Like, I know revolutions, but they're still deeply relevant to the time we live in today, and they're also just really cool, and there's so much going on, and there's like this huge cast of characters, but they're also real people, which is scary and also so interesting. So this is kind of a rant, but I want to leave you with one more thing, and that is the 1900s. Just 1900 to 1999 is my bread and butter. We love to see it. The 20th century is honestly so cool. Like, every decade is something new and interesting, and there's so much going on in this span of 100 years that is honestly unrivaled. And like, I know I'm living through the year 2020 and that's like 100 years in 1 year, I get it. But this is just so interesting to me. Like, you see so many changes and so many different ideas happening. And it would be so cool if this would probably never happen. It would take too many resources, but like, if it did, I would like die probably. But if someone did a show that was like, from every season is 10 years throughout the 20th century, wouldn't that be so cool to see? Like, you start in 1900 to 1910, and then you go all the way up to the 90s, and like, I don't know, like, wouldn't that be so cool? Like, am I just the only one who thinks this way about history? Like, I don't know. These are just my thoughts. I'm in between videos right now. I'm working on some cool stuff that you guys will get to see, and I'm really excited for the new year. And I know that this year has definitely been one for the history books. I don't know. Maybe this is just me. If you liked this video, somehow, give it a like. Give me feedback in the comments. What do you think about history? Do you have any ideas for videos that you want me to talk about? Hopefully with a better script than this one. Subscribe if you feel so inclined. I do a podcast with my co-host, Ava, and she makes really great videos. She just reviewed every season of Supernatural with a friend, and that's ridiculously cool to me. I could never watch all 15 seasons of Supernatural, so there you go. Like, comment, subscribe, or don't. I'll be sad, but that's just the way it is sometimes. Bye, everyone.